Alrighty, we are back. Welcome back to another thrilling installment of Fraggoth Reads. I'm your intrepid narrator, Fraggoth, and today we're going to be reading more of Cyteen by CJ Cherryh. So our plot is really getting kicked underway now, at long last. And the initiating event for really getting some plot going is that Grant, who is a alpha Azzy. No, sorry. Let's start where it's relevant. So, at Reseune, Ariane Emory gets back from the politicking that occurs with the interaction with Mikhail Corain, Gorodin, and et al. And so Reseune is having a family dinner with a capital F. And so during the course of this dinner, there's a degree of verbal sparring that occurs, as one does, apparently. And because these people kind of don't like each other, as we're learning, for various reasons. And Ariane, right at the end of dinner, basically makes a comment that she wants to see Grant, and Justin Warrick, who rooms with Grant, who thinks of Grant as a brother, has deep affection for Grant, basically says, "Frig that, we're going to run away." And sends Grant downriver. Justin Warrick himself, who is the son, a clone son, a clone descendant son of Jordan Warrick. This is complicated, and I'm bound to screw up some of these up during these précis, if you will. It is probably going to happen, and for that I apologize. This book is confusing. Only but by the grace of having read it many times can I keep any of it straight, and some of it is a reminder, wake-up call for me. So Justin is a clone son of Jordan Warrick. Grant is an alpha-level Azzy. He's an experimental Azzy, and so that's why Ariane Emory wants to see Grant in private. Now, that Justin Warrick would rather send Grant away and risk all the horrible things that could potentially occur to him, and other people he cares about, like Jordan, whom he cares for as his father. That he would do this is telling, but we don't know of what yet. Justin goes back to Reseune, and is like, tries to act like, nothing's untoward, nothing's weird, but Ariane Emory confronts him and is like, "Hey, where's Grant?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't know, he must have run away." And she's like, "Come to my office, please." And so he meets her in one of the cryo labs, and she's like, "Hey, did Jordan put you up to this? Is this a Jordan thing?" And he's like, "No." "No, it's not Jordan." And she's like, "Really? This was you?" And he's like, "Yeah, it was me." And so part of the reason he does it... So basically she threatens him and says, "Hey, I'm going to ruin Jordan's life if you don't do what I tell you." Gives him an ultimatum. I'm going to oversimplify a bit. For the sake of brevity, because otherwise I'll be yapping for another 2 hours. A lot happens in a fairly short period of time here, and I'm probably getting some of it wrong, and for that, just listen to the previous installment if you didn't already. This is confusing enough as it is, and I'm probably making it worse, which is a shame. Anyway, Justin now... basically is faced with, well, you're going to have to work even closer with Ariane Emory. He's basically going to be held as kind of a hostage, so that Jordan Warrick can go about his transfer. And Justin isn't terribly thrilled about this, but someone's going to have to tell Jordan, lest Jordan go and do something hasty. Jordan Warrick, Justin's father, thinks, not wholly unjustifiably, that he is the smartest guy in the room, pretty much at any given time. And he's prone to... what's the word I'm looking for? Well, he acts hastily. He will act reflexively in certain instances and emotionally in ways that are not necessarily beneficial to him. So Justin is like, okay, I'm going to have to tell him the score so that he doesn't go nuclear. Even though Jordan has already kind of gone and made a pretty big power play in order to get him, Justin, and I think Grant, sent away to this this research station at Fraggoth. It's complicated. We'll learn a bit more about this as we go. Some of it will be made clearer. Some of it will become academic. Things will get more complicated, though. I might have to just skip doing these explanatories because I'm likely to screw them up more or confuse the issue more than I am to make it clearer. Also, they're going to be pretty long. Today's will be pretty short because we're finishing up Chapter 2, which is pretty long. Tomorrow's will be a bit longer, I think. Yeah, we could do all of Chapter 3 tomorrow, I think. Yeah, that should be no problem. It'll be a long one, but that's okay. Anyway. With that, let me get a little water in me and we'll get started. I'm still putting together a list of things I want to do for the year, mostly individual books. Some of them will be from some series. So it's... this year's going to be very much played by ear, if it wasn't clear already. Alrighty, let me get some water in me, and we'll get rocking with the roll in here. Six. What we did. Justin turned the stem of his wine glass, a focus to look at anything but Jordan's face. What we did was what we always planned to do, if one of us got cornered. Her taking Grant was to pressure me. I know you told me I should come to you, but she sprang that on us, and there wasn't time to do anything but file a protest with the Bureau. That'd have been too late for Grant. God knows what she might have put him through before we could get any kind of injunction, if we could get one at all. He shrugged. And we couldn't win it in the long run. The law's on her side, and it would foul everything up just after everything was settled on the Fraggoth deal. So I just took the only chance I thought would work. My best judgment. That's all I can say. It was a private lunch in the kitchen in Jordan's apartment. Paul did the serving, simple sandwiches, and neither of them did more than pick at the food. Paul is Jordan's companion, and Paul is also an Azzy. We'll learn more about the Azzy place in society writ large, particularly on Cyteen, over the course of this novel, this
series, I guess. Damn, Jordan said. He had said very little up to that point, had let Justin get it out in order. Damn, you shouldn't have told me what was you should have told me what was going on. I told you. I couldn't get to you. It'd make everything I did look like it was your doing. I didn't want to lay a trail. Did you? Did you lay one? Pretty plain where I'm concerned, I'm afraid. But that's part of the deal. That's why I stayed here. Ari's got something on me. She's got me to use against you, the way she planned to use Grant. Wow, okay. Sometimes she writes conversations or dialogue very organically, and sometimes that very much throws me. I apologize. Did you lay one? A trail. Pretty plain where I'm concerned, I'm afraid. But that's part of the deal. That's why I stayed here. Ari's got something on me. She's got me to use against you, the way she planned to use Grant against me. Now, she doesn't need him, does she? You're damn right she doesn't need him. My God, son! It's not that bad. It's not that bad. He kept his voice ever so steady. I called her bluff. I stayed around. She said that this is the way it's going to work. You get your transfer as soon as the facility is built, earnest of her good faith. Then I get Grant to go out there to you, earnest of mine. That way, you're left here where she can do anything she damn well pleases. That way, he reprised calmly, carefully, she knows that she can hold on to me and keep you quiet until her projects are too far advanced to stop. And the military won't let you go public. That's what she's after. She's got it. But there's a limit to what she can do. And this way, all of us get out. Eventually. Jordan said nothing for a long, long while, then lifted his wine glass and took a drink and set it down. And still said nothing for minutes upon minutes. I should never have kept Grant, Jordan said finally. When things blew up with Ari, I knew it would happen. Damn, I knew it would all those years ago. Don't ever take favors from your enemies. It was too late then, wasn't it? Justin said. The bluntness shocked his nerves, brought him close to tears, and anger without focus. God, what could we do? Are you sure he's all right? I haven't dared to try to find out. I think Ari would have told me if she knew anything different. I set everything up. If the number I gave him doesn't answer, Kruger's will keep him safe till it does. Merrill's number? Justin nodded. God. Jordan raked his hair back and looked at him in despair. Son, Merrill's no match for the police. You always said, if anything happened, and you always said he was a friend of the Krugers, and Ari's not going to call the police, or try anything herself. She said that. I've got all the ends of this. I really think I have. Then you're a damn sight more confident than you ought to be. Then you're a damn sight more confident than you ought to be, Jordan snapped. Grant's somewhere we're not sure. Kruger's could have the police on their doorstep. Merrill may or may not be available, for God's sake. He practices all over the continent. Well, I couldn't damn well phone ahead, could I? Jordan's face was red. He took another drink of wine, and the level in the glass measurably diminished. Merrill's a lawyer. He's got ethics to worry about. He's also got friends, hasn't he? A lot of friends. He's not going to like this. It's the same as me coming to him, isn't it? He was suddenly on the defensive, fighting on the retreat. Grant's no different. Merrill knows that, doesn't he? Where's ethics if it turns Grant over to the police? You'd have been a hell of a lot easier to answer for. If you'd had the sense to go with him, for God's sake. He's not ours. He belongs to the labs. My being with him couldn't make it legal. You're also a minor under the law, and there are extenuating circumstances. You'd have been out of here, and they'd bring it to court, and God knows what they could find for charges. Isn't that so? Jordan let go a long breath and looked up from under his brows. He desperately wanted Jordan to say, no, that's wrong, there is something. Then everything became possible. But, yes, Jordan said in a low voice, dashing his hopes. So it's fixed, Justin said, isn't it? And you don't have to do anything unless the deal comes unfixed. I can tell you if I'm getting in trouble from Ari. Oh, sorry. I can tell you if I'm getting trouble from Ari, can't I? Like this time, Jordan returned. Better than this time. I promise you. I promise. All right? Jordan picked at his sandwich, sidestepping the question. It was not all right. Justin knew that. But it was what it was what it was. Oh, sorry. But it was what there was. You're going to end up staying here when I transfer, Jordan said. I'll work something out. Just don't give anything away. I'm not giving a damned thing away. Ari's not through. You'd better understand that. She doesn't keep her agreements longer than she has to. Grant's proof of that. She's damned well capable of cutting throats, hear me, son, and you'd better take that into account the next time you want to bluff. She doesn't think any more of you or me or anyone than the subjects in her labs, than the poor 9-year-old Azzy down there in the yards that she decides to mind-wipe and ship off to some damn sweat house because he's just not going to work out, because she needs the space, for God's sake. Or the problem cases she won't solve. She won't even run them past my staff. She's not going to use that gene set again anyway, and she damned well put 3 healthy Azzy down last month, just declared them hazards, because she didn't want to take the time with them. The experiment they were in is over, and that's all she needed. I can't prove it, because I didn't get the data, but I know it happened. That's who you're playing games with. She doesn't give a damn for any life, God help her lab subjects, and she's gotten beyond what public opinion might make of it. That's what she's gotten to. She's so smart they can't figure out her notes. She's answerable only to union law, and she's got that in her pocket. She just doesn't give a damn, and we're all under her microscope. Jordan shoved his plate away and stared at it a moment before he looked up. Son, don't trust there's anything she won't do. There isn't. He listened. He listened very hard, and heard Ari saying that accidents and Reseune were easy. Seven. His watch showed 20:30 when he exited the shower and picked it up to put it on, in an apartment entirely too quiet and depressingly empty. He was halfway glad not to spend the night here, with the silence and Grant's empty room, glad the way biting one's lip did something to make a smashed finger hurt less. That was about the way of it. Losing Grant hurt worse than anything else could, and Ari's harassment, he reckoned, even became a kind of anodyne to the other, sharper misery she had put him to. Damned bitch, he thought, and his eyes stung, which was a humiliation he refused to give way to on her account. It was Grant had him unhinged. It was the whole damned mess Grant was in that had his hands shaking so badly he had trouble with the aerosol cap and popped it a ricocheting course around the mirrored sink alcove. It infuriated him. Everything conspired to irritate him out of all reason, and he set the bottle down with measured control and shaved the scant amount he had to. Like preparing a corpse for funeral, he thought. Everyone in Reseune had a say in his future. Everyone had a mortgage on him, even his father, who had not asked his son whether he wanted to grow up with a PR on his name and know every line he was to get before he was 40. Not, thank God, a bad sort of face, but not an original either. A face carrying all sorts of significances with his father's friends and enemies. And Ari cornering him that first time in the lab's storage room. He had not known what to do then. He had wished 1,000 times since he had grabbed hold of her and given her what she was evidently not expecting out of a 17-year-old kid with a woman more than twice old enough to be his grandmother. But being 17, and shocked and not having thought through what his choices were before this, he had frozen and stammered something idiotic about having to go. He had a meeting he had to make, and had she got the report he had turned in on a project whose number he could not even remember. His face burned whenever he thought about it. He had gotten out that door so fast he had forgotten his clipboard and the reports, and had to rewrite them rather than go back after them. He headed toward this appointment of Ari's, this damnable no-way-out-of-it meeting, with a carefully nurtured feeling that he might, maybe, get something of his self-respect back if he played it right now. She was old, but she was not quite beyond her rejuve. She looked maybe late 40s, and he had seen hollows of her at 12 and 16, a face not yet settled into the hard handsomeness it had now. As women 6 times his age went, she was still worth looking at. What she had was the same as Julia Carnath's in the dark, he told himself with a carefully held cynicism, and better than Julia. At least Ari was up front with what she was after. Everybody in Reseune slept with everybody else reasonable at some time or other. It was not totally out of line that Ariane Emory wanted to renew her youth with a replicate of a man who would have been 3 times too young for her when he was 17. The situation might have deserved a real laugh if things were not so grim, and he were not the 17-year-old in question. It was not sure he could do a damned thing, but, he told himself, she might at least be an experience. His was limited to Julia, who had ended up asking him for Grant, which had hurt so badly he had never gone back to her, which was about the sum of his love affairs, and he had almost decided Jordan was right in his misogyny. Ari was a snake. She was everything reprehensible, but the key to the whole thing, he thought, was his own attitude. If he used it, if he handled it as if it were what Jordan called one of his damn fool stunts, then Ari had no weapon to use. That was the best way to take care of the problem, and that was what he had made his mind up to do. And that was what he had made up his mind to do. Be a man. Go along with the whole mess. Learn from it. God knew a woman Ari's age had something to teach him, in several senses. Let Ari do what she wanted, play her little games, and either lose interest or not. He reckoned he could take a page from Ari's notebook, that a 17-year-old wasn't going to be besotted with a woman her age, but a woman her age might have a real emotional need for a handsome, good-humored CIT bedmate. Let her get hooked. Let her have the problem, and him have the solution. Age and vanity might be the way to deal with her, the weakness no one else could find, because no one else was the 17-year-old boy she wanted. You see where this might be going. Abuse of power. I may have mentioned this before. But with the CJ Cherryh twist. 8. His watch showed 21:05 when he walked up to the door and rang the bell of Ari's apartment. The 5 because he meant to make Ari wonder if he was going to show, or if instead he and Jordan were going to come up with something, and no more than 5 because he was afraid if Ari thought that, then Ari might initiate some action even she might not be able to stop. It was Catelyn who opened the door, on an apartment he had never seen. Mostly buff travertine and white furniture, very expensive, the sort of appointments Ari could afford and the rest of them only saw in places like the Hall of State, on newscasts. And blonde, braid-crowned Catelyn, immaculate in her black uniform, very formal. But then, Catelyn always was. "Good evening," Catelyn said to him, one of the few times he had ever had a pleasant word from her. "Good evening," he said, as Catelyn let the door close. There was a drift of music, barely intruding on the ears. Electronic flute, cold as the stone halls through which it moved. He felt a shiver in his bones. He had eaten nothing but that handful of salted chips at lunch and a piece of dry toast at supper time, thinking that if there were anything in his stomach he would throw up. Now he felt weak in the knees and light-headed, and regretted that mistake. "Sarah doesn't entertain in this end of the apartments," Catelyn said, leading him through to another hall. "It's only for appearances. Mind your step, sir. These rugs are treacherous on the stone. I keep telling Sarah. Have you heard from Grant at all?" "No." His stomach tightened at the sudden, mildly delivered flank attack. "I don't expect to." "I'm glad he's safe," Catelyn said confidentially, as she might have said how nice the weather was, that same silky voice, so he had no idea whether Catelyn was ever glad of anything or ever cared for anyone. She was cold and beautiful as the music, as the hall she led him through, and her opposite number met them at the end of the hall, in a large sunken den, panelled in glazed woolwood, all grey-blue and fabric-like under a sheen of plastic, carpeted in long white shag, furnished with grey-green chairs and a large beige couch. Florian came from the hall beyond, likewise in uniform, dark and slight to Catelyn's athletic fairness. He laid a companionable hand on Justin's shoulder. "Tell Sarah her guest is here," he said to Catelyn. "Would you like a drink, sir?" "Yes," he said. "Vodka and Pesci, if you've got it." Pesci was an import, extravagant enough, and he was still in shock from the richness Ari managed inside Reseune. He looked around him at Downer statuary in the far corner beyond the bar, wide-eyed ritual images, at steel sculpture, and at a few paintings about the woolwood walls. God, he had seen in tapes as classics from the sublight ships. Stuck in this place, where only Ari and her guests saw them. It was a monument to self-indulgence. And he thought of the 9-year-old Azzy his father had mentioned. Florian brought him the drink. "Do sit down," Florian said, but he walked the raised gallery about the rim of the room, looking at the paintings, one after the other, sipping at a drink he had only had once in his life, and trying to calm his nerves. He heard a step behind him, turned as Ari walked up on him. Ari, in a geometric print robe lapped at the waist, that glittered with the lights. Decidedly no fit attire to meet business company. He stared at her, his heart hammering away in him in the panicked realization that Ari was very real, that he was in a situation he did not know the limits of, and there was no way out from here. "Enjoying my collection?" She indicated the painting he had been looking at. "That's my uncle's. Quite an artist." He was good. He was off his stride for a moment. Least of all did he expect Ari to start off with reminiscences. "He was good at a lot of things. You never knew him?" "Of course not. He died in 45. Before I was born. Damn, it's hard to keep up with things." She slipped her arm into his and guided him toward the next painting. "That one's a real prize. Faustberg. A naive artist, but a first view of Alpha Cent, where no human goes now. I love that piece." "That's something." He stared at it with a strange feeling of time and antiquity, realizing it was real, from the hand of someone who had been there, to a star humankind had lost. "There was a time no one knew what that was worth," she said. "I did. There were a lot of primitive artists on the first ships. Sublight space gave them a lot of time to create. Faustberg worked in chart pens and acrylics, and damn, they had to invent a whole new preservation technique. They had to invent whole new preservation techniques up on station. I insisted. My uncle bought the lot. I wanted them preserved, and that's why the Argo paintings got saved at all. Most of them are in the museum at Novgorod. And now Sol Station wants one of the Faustberg 61 Cygnes really, really bad. And we may agree, for something of equal value. I have a certain Corot in mind." "Who's Corot?" "God, child. Trees. Green trees. Have you seen the Terran tapes?" "A lot of them." He forgot his anxiety for a moment, recollecting a profusion of landscapes stranger than native Cyteen. "Well, Corot painted landscapes, among other things. I should lend you some of my tapes. I should put them on tonight. Catelyn, have you got that Origins of Human Art series?" "I'm sure we do, Sarah. I'll key it up." among others. That, young friend, is one of our own, Shevchenky. We have him on file. He died, poor fellow, of life support failure when they were setting up Pytho up on the coast. But he really did remarkable work. Red cliffs and the blue of Woolwood. That was too familiar to interest him. He could do that, he thought privately, but he was too polite to say it. He sketched. He even painted, or had, when he was fresh from the inspiration of the explorer painters. Groundbound, he imagined stars and alien worlds, and had never in his life expected to get clear of Reseune. Until it looked like Jordan might. Florian came up and offered Ari a drink, a bright golden concoction in a cut crystal glass. "Orange and vodka," she said. "Have you ever tasted orange?" "Synthetic," he said. Everyone had. "No, real. Here, have a sip." He took a little from the offered glass. It was strange, a complicated, sour, sweet, bitter taste under the alcohol. A taste of old earth, if she was serious, and no one who had these paintings on her walls could be otherwise. "It's nice," he said. "Nice. It's marvelous. AG is going to make a try with the trees. We think we have a site for them. No messing about with genetics. We think the zones can accommodate them just the way they are. It's a bright orange fruit, just like the name. Full of good things. Go on, take it. Florian, do me another, will you?" She locked her arm tighter, steered him toward the steps and down toward the couch. "What did you tell Jordan?" "Just that Grant was out of the way and everything was all right." He sat down, took a large swallow of the drink, then set it down on the brass counter behind the couch, having gotten control of his nerves, as much as he figured was likely in this place, in present company. "I didn't tell him anything else. I figure it's my business." "Is it?" "Is it?" Ari settled close to him, at which his stomach tightened and felt utterly queasy. She laid her hand on his leg and leaned against him, and all he could think of was the Azzy Jordan had talked about, the ones she had put down for no reason at all, the poor damned Azzy not even knowing they were dying, just some order to report for a medical. "Sit a little closer, dear. That's all right. It's just pleasant, isn't it? You really shouldn't tense up like that, all nervous." She slipped her arm about his ribs and rubbed his back. "There, relax. That feels good, doesn't it? Turn around and let me do something for those shoulders." It was like when she had trapped him in the lab. He tried to think what to answer to something that outrageous and failed completely. He picked up the drink and took a heavy swallow and another and did not do what she asked. Neither did her hand stop its slow movement. "You're so tight. Look, it's a simple bargain, and you don't have to be here. All you have to do is walk out the door." "Sure. Why don't we just go into the bedroom, damn it?" His hands were close to shaking. The chill of the ice went right through his fingers to the bone. He finished the drink without looking at her. I could kill her, he thought, not angrily, just as a solution to the insoluble. Before Florian and Catelyn could stop me, I could just break her neck. What could they do then? Psych probe me and find out everything she did? That'd fix her. It might be the way. It might be the way to get out of this. Florian is out of orange juice. Get him another. Come on, sweet. Relax. You really can't do anything like that. You know better, and I know better. You want to try it yourself? Is that the problem? I want the drink, he muttered. Everything seemed unreal, nightmarish. In a moment she was going to start talking to him the way she had in the interviews, and that was all part of it. A sordid, dirty business he did not know how to get through, but he wanted to be drunk, very, very drunk, so that possibly he would get sick, turn out incapable, and she would just give up on this. You said you never had experimented around, Ari said. Just the tapes. Is that the truth? He did not answer. He only twisted round on the couch to see how long it was going to take Florian to get him the drink, to have any distraction that might turn this in some other direction. Do you think you're normal? Ari said. He did not answer that either. He watched Florian's back as Florian poured and mixed the drink. He felt Ari's hands on his back, felt the cushion give as she shifted against him, as her hand came around his side. Florian handed him the drink, and he leaned there with his elbow on the back of the couch, sipping the orange drink and feeling the slow, light movement of Ari's hands on his back.
"Let me tell you something," Ari said softly behind him. "You remember what I told you about family relationships? That they're a liability? I'm going to do you a real favor. Ask me what that is."
"What?" he asked, because he had to. Her arms came around him, and he took a drink, trying to ignore the nausea she made in his gut.
"You think tenderness ought to have something to do with this," Ari said. "Wrong. Tenderness hasn't got a thing to do with it. Sex is what you do for yourself, for your own reasons, sweet, just because it feels good. That's all. Now, sometimes you get real close to somebody and you want to do it back and forth. That's fine, and maybe you trust them, but you shouldn't. You really shouldn't. The first thing you have to learn is that you can get it anywhere. The second thing, it ties you to people who aren't family, and it mucks up your judgment unless you remember the first rule. That's how I'm going to do you a favor, sweet. You're not going to confuse what we're doing here. Does that feel good?" It was hard to breathe. It was hard to drink. It was hard to think, His heart was hammering, and her hands did quiet, disturbing things that made his skin all too sensitive, the edge of pleasure or intense discomfort. He was no longer sure which. He drank a large gulp of the orange and vodka and tried to put his mind anywhere else, anywhere at all, in a kind of fog in which he was less and less in control of himself. "How are you doing, dear?"
Not well, he thought, and thought that he was drunk. But at the edge of his senses he felt a dislocation, a difficulty in spatial relationships, like the feeling that Ari was 1,000 miles away, her voice coming from behind him, and not straight back, but aside in a strange and asymmetrical way. It was a cataphoric, tape study drug. Panic raced through his brain, Panic raced through his brain, chaotic, stimuli coming in on him too fast, while the body seemed to lag in an atmosphere gone to syrup. Not a high dosage. He could see. He could still feel Ari tug his shirt up, run her hands over his bare skin, even while his sense of balance deserted him and he felt his head spinning, the whole room going around. He lost the glass and felt the chill of ice and liquid spreading against his hip and under his buttocks.
"Oh dear. Florian, get that."
He was sinking. He was still aware. He tried to move, but confusion set in, a roaring muddle of sound and sensation. He tried to doubt. That was the hardest thing. He was quite aware that Florian had rescued the glass and that his head was back in Ari's lap, in the hollow of her crossed legs, that he was gazing up into Ari's face upside down, and that she was unfastening his shirt. She was not the only one unfastening his clothing. He heard a murmur of voices, but none of them involved him.
"Justin,"
a voice said, and Ari turned his head between her hands.
"You can blink when you need to,"
she whispered, the way the tapes would.
Are you comfortable?"
He did not know. He was terrified and ashamed, and in a long nightmare he felt touches go over him, felt himself lifted up and dragged off wherever he was lying on and down onto the floor. It was Catelyn and Florian who hovered over him. It was Catelyn and Florian who touched him and moved him and did things to him that he was aware of in a kind of vague nowhere way, which were wrong and terrible. "Stop this," he thought. "Stop this. I don't agree with this. I don't want this." But there was pleasure. There was an explosion in his senses, somewhere infinite, somewhere dark. "Help me. I don't want this." He was half conscious when Ari said to him, "You're awake, aren't you? Do you understand now?
There's nothing more than this. That's as good as it gets. There's nothing more than this, no matter who it's with. Just biological reactions. That's the first and second rule. Watch the screen.
Tape was running. It was erotic. It blurred into what was happening to him. It felt good, and he did not want it to, but he was not responsible for it. He was not responsible for anything, and it was not his fault.
I think he's coming out of it.
I think he's coming out of it.
Just give him a little more. He'll do fine. There's nothing can do to you what tape can do, can it, boy? No matter who it is. Biological reactions. Whatever does it for you. Don't move. Pain and pleasure, sweet, are so thin a line. You can cross it 12 times a minute, and the pain becomes the pleasure. I can show you. You'll remember what I can do for you, sweet, and nothing will ever be like it. You'll think about that. You'll think about it for the rest of your life, and nothing will ever be the same.
He opened his eyes and found a shadow over him. Himself naked, in a bed he did not know, a hand patting his shoulder, moving to brush hair from his brow.
Well, well, awake,
Ari said. It was her weight that pushed down the edge of the mattress. Ari sitting there, dressed, and he... His heart jumped and started hammering.
I'm off to the office, sweet. You can sleep in, if you like. Florian will serve you breakfast.
I'm going home, he said, and dragged the sheet over him.
Whatever you like.
Ariane got up, releasing the mattress, and walked across to take a look in the wall mirror, demonstrative unconcern that crawled over his nerves and unsettled his stomach.
Come in when you like. Talk to Jordan if you like.
What am I supposed to do?
Whatever you like.
Am I supposed to stay here? Panic sharpened his voice. He knew the danger in Ari hearing it, acting on it, working on it. It was a threat she had just made. He thought that it was. Her tone was blank, void of cues. Her voice tweaked at nerves and made him forget for a handful of seconds that he had a counter-threat in Grant, upriver. It won't work.
Won't it?
Ari gave her hair a pat. She was elegant, in a beige suit. She turned and smiled at him.
Come in when you like. You can go home tonight. Maybe we'll do it again. Who knows? Maybe you can tell your father and get him to pass it off. Tell him whatever you like. Of course, I had a recorder on. There's plenty of evidence if he wants to go to the bureau.
He felt cold through and through. He tried not to show it. He glared at her, jaw set, as she smiled and walked out the door. And for a long while he lay there, cold as ice, sick to his stomach, darts of headache going from the top of his skull through to the nape of his neck. His skin felt hypersensitized, sore in places. There were bruises on his arms, the marks of fingers. Florian. A flash came back to... Oops, did I skip a page? Nope. The pages are kind of thin, so sometimes it'll happen. Florian. A flash came back to him, sensation and image from out of the dark, and he plunged his face into his hands and tried to shove it out. Tape flash. Deep tape. More and more of them would come back. He did not know what could come back. And they would. Bits of memory floating up to the surface and showing a moment, a drift of words and feeling and vision, before they rolled over and sank again into the dark, nothing complete. Just more and more of them. He could not stop it. He threw the sheets out. Try it again. He threw the sheets back and got out of bed, unfocusing his eyes where it came to his own body. He staggered into the bathroom, turned on the shower and bathed, soaped himself again and again and again, scrubbed without looking at himself, trying not to feel anything, remember anything, wonder anything. He scrubbed his face and hair and even the inside of his mouth with the perfumed soap, because he did not know if there was anything else to use. and spat and gagged from the sharp, soapy taste, but it did not make him clean. It was a scent he remembered as hers. Now he smelled like it, and tasted it in the back of his throat. And when he had chafed himself dry in the shower cabinet blower and he had come out into the cold air of the bathroom, Florian walked in with a folded stack of his clothes. "There's coffee, sir, if you like." Bland, as if nothing had happened, as if none of it were real. "Where's a shaver?" he asked. "The counter, sir." Florian motioned toward the mirrored end of the bath. "Toothbrush, comb, lotion. Is there anything else you need?" "No." He kept his voice even. He thought of going home. He thought of killing himself, of knives in the kitchen, of pills in the bathroom cabinet. But the investigation afterward would open everything up to politics, and politics would swallow his father up. In the same moment he thought of subliminals that might have been buried in his mind last night, urges to suicide, God knew what. Any irrational thought was suspect. He could not trust them. A series of tape flashes ripped past him, sensations, erotic visions, landscapes, and ancient artworks. Then real things set in the future. Images of Jordan's outrage. Himself dead on the floor of his kitchen. He rebuilt the image and tried to make it something exotic. Himself just walking out beyond the precip towers, a body to be found like a scrap of white rag by air search a few hours later. "Sorry, sir, looks like we've found him." But this was not a valid test of any suspected subliminal Ari might have put into his tape. When a mind drank in tape study, it incorporated it. Tape images faded and resident memory wove itself into the implant structure and grew in its own way. There was no reliable way to detect an embedded command, but it could not make him act when he was conscious, unless it accurately triggered some predisposition. Only when drugs had the threshold flat, then he would take in stimuli without censoring, answer what he was asked, do whatever he was told. Anything he was asked, anything he was told, if it slipped past the subconscious barriers of his value sets and his natural blocks. A psych surgeon could, given time, get answers that revealed the sets and their configurations, then just insert an argument or two that confounded the internal logic, rearrange the set after that, create a new microstructure, and link it where the surgeon chose. All those questions in the damned psych tests Ari had given him, calling them routine for Wing 1 aides. Questions about his work, his beliefs, his sexual experiences. That he, being a fool, had thought were simply Ari's way of tormenting him. He dressed without looking at the mirrors. He shaved and brushed his teeth and combed his hair. There was nothing wrong with his face, no mark on it, nothing to betray what had happened. It was the same ordinary face. Jordan's face. She must have gotten a real satisfaction out of that. He smiled at himself, testing whether he could control himself. He could. He had that back, as long as he was not facing Ari herself. Her Azzy he could handle. Correction. Florian he could handle. He thanked God it was Florian she had left with him and not Catelyn, and then a wild flutter of mental panic wanted to know why he reacted that way, why the thought of dealing with Catelyn the Icicle sent a disorganizing quiver through his nerves. Fear of women? Are you afraid of women, sweet? You know your father is. He combed his hair. He wanted to throw up. He smiled instead, a retesting of his control, and carefully wiped the tension of the headache from the small muscles around his eyes, relaxed the tension from his shoulders. He walked out and gave that smile to Florian. You'll report to her. I can't think with my head splitting. Damn, just let him tell her I was all right. That's all I have to do. Keep my face on straight and get out of here. The sitting room, the white rug, the paintings on the walls brought back a flash of memory, of pain and erotic sensation. But everything had happened to him. It was a kind of armor. There was nothing left to be afraid of. He took the cup from Florian and sipped at it, stopping the tremor of his hand, a shiver which hit of a sudden as internal chill and a cold draught from the air conditioning coincided. "Cold," he said. "I think it's the hangover." "I'm really sorry," Florian said, and met his eyes with an Ozzy's calm, anxious honesty. At least it seemed to be, and probably it was very real. There was not a shred of morality involved, of course, except an Ozzy's, which was to avoid rows with citizens who might find ways to retaliate. Florian had real cause to worry in his case. Florian, last night. "I don't want to hurt you. Relax. Relax." The face had nothing to do with the mind. The face kept smiling. "Thanks." Far, far easier to torment Florian. If it was Ari, he would fall apart. He had last night. Seeing Florian afraid. Pain and pleasure. Interfaces. He smiled and sipped his coffee and enjoyed what he was doing with a bitter, ugly pleasure even while he was scared of what he was doing, meddling with one of Ari's Azi, and twice scared of the fact that he enjoyed it. It was, he told himself, only a human impulse, revenge for his humiliation. He would have thought the same thing, done the same thing, the day before. Only he would not have known why he enjoyed it, or even that he enjoyed it. He would not have thought of a dozen ways to make Florian sweat, or considered with pleasure the fact that, if he could maneuver Florian into some situation, say, down at the ag pens, far away from the house, on terms that did not involve protecting Ari, he could pay Florian in kind. Florian being Azzy and vulnerable in a dozen ways he could think of, without Ari around. Florian undoubtedly knew it. And because Florian was Ari's, Ari probably fed off Florian's discomfiture in leaving Florian alone with him. It fitted with everything else. "I feel sorry for you," Justin said, and put his hand on Florian's shoulder, squeezed hard, on the edge of pain. On the edge of pain. "You don't have a real comfortable spot here, do you? You like her?" "The first thing you have to learn is that you can get it anywhere. The second thing, it ties you to people who aren't family, and it mucks up your judgment unless you remember the first rule. That's how I'm going to do you a favor, sweet. You're not going to confuse what we're doing here." Florian only stared at him, not moving. Even though the grip on his shoulder undoubtedly hurt, and even though Florian could break it with a shrug, and maybe his arm into the bargain. That stoic patience was, Justin thought, what one could expect in this place of Ari's Azzy. "What does Ari really want me to do?" Justin asked. "Have you got it figured out? Am I supposed to stay here? Am I supposed to go home?" As if he and Florian were the same thing. Co-conspirators, Azzy both. He loathed the thought. But Florian was, in a way, his ally, a page he could read and a subject he could handle, and he still could not read the truth in Ari's eyes, not even when she was answering his questions in all sobriety. "She expects you to go home, sir." "Do I get other invitations?" "I think so," Florian said in a quiet, quiet voice. "Tonight?" "I don't know," Florian said, and added, "Sarah will probably sleep tonight," as if it were all a long familiar sequence of events. A queasiness went through his stomach. They were all caught in this. Attitude, Jordan would say. Everything is attitude. You can do anything if you're in control of it. You have to know what your profit is in doing it, that's all. Life was not enough to trade a soul for. But power, power to stop it happening, power to pay it back, that was worth the trade. His father's safety was. The hope someday of being in a position to do something about Ariane Emory, that was. "I'm going to go home," he said to Florian. "Take something for my headache, get my messages, and go on to the office. I don't suppose my father's called my apartment." "I wouldn't know, sir." "I thought you kept up with things like that," he said, soft and sharp as a paper cut. "Sorry. I thought you kept up with things like that." he said, soft and sharp as a paper cut. He set down the coffee cup, remembering where the outside door was, and headed off through the halls, with Florian trailing him like an anxious shadow. Ari's guard, too polite to show it, and much too worried to let him walk that course through Ari's apartments unwatched. For half a heartbeat he thought ahead to the safety of his rooms upstairs, and expected Grant would be there to confide in. The two of them would think things out. It was the habit of a lifetime, a stupid kind of reflex that suddenly wrenched at a stomach ravaged by too little food, too much drink, too many drugs, too much shock. He went light-headed and grayed out, kept walking all the same, remembering the way from here, that it was a straight course down a hall decorated with fragile tables and more fragile pottery. A triple archway, then, of square travertine pillars, and the reception room, the one Catelyn had said was for show. He remembered the warning about the rugs and the floor, negotiated the travertine steps, and crossed the room, up the slight rise to the door. He reached to the door lock to let himself out, except Florian interposed his hand and pushed the latch himself. "Be careful, sir," Florian said, and meant more, he was sure, than the walk home. He remembered the 9-year-old, and the Azzy Ariane had killed. Remembered the vulnerability any Azzy had, even Grant, and saw Florian's, who had never had a chance since the day he was created, and who was, accepting his dark side, gentle and honest as a saint, because he was made that way, and tapes kept him that way despite all else Ari made him be. It was that enigma that dogged him out the door and down the hall, in a confusion of graying vision and weakness, all part of the nightmare that crowded on his senses, tape flash and physical exhaustion. Ari had shaped Florian, in both his aspects, with all his capacities, the dark and the light. She might not have made him in the first place, but she maintained him according to the original design, from her own youth. To have a victim, he wondered, was that all it was? Test subject? For an ongoing project? Interface. The answer came rolling up to the surface and dived down again, nightmarish as a drowned body. Crossing of the line. Truth lies at the interface of extremes. Opposites are mutually necessary. Pleasure and pain, sweet. Everything oscillates, or there's nothing. Everything can be in another state, or it can't change at all. Ships move on that principle. The stars burn. Species evolve. He reached the lift. He got himself inside and leaned against the wall until the door opened. He walked into a reeling hall, kept his balance as far as his own apartment, and managed the key. No entries since the last use of this key. Can't depend on that, he'd thought, in gray out, in a sudden weakness that made the couch seem very far away and nothing safe. Can't depend on anything. She can get into anything, even the security systems. Probably bugged the place while I was out. She'd do a thing like that. You can't know if the minder can catch the kind of things she can lay hands on. State of the art. Expensive stuff. Classified stuff. She could get it. Maybe Jordan can. He reached the couch and sat down, lay back and shut his eyes. What if I'm not alone? Ari's voice, soft and hateful. I planned your father's actions, every one of them, even if I couldn't predict the microstructures. Microstructures aren't that important. Tape designer's aphorism. Macrostructure determines microstructure. The value framework governs everything. I even planned you, sweet. I planted the idea. Jordan has this terrible need for companionship. Am I lying? You owe your existence to me. He imagined for a heartbeat that Grant would walk in from the other room. Grant would ask what was the matter. Grant would help him unweave the maze in which he found himself. Grant had experienced deep tape. God knew. But it was only a ghost, a habit hard to break.
And Grant, certainly, I planned. I made him, after all. He had to go to the lab. He had to get out of the isolation in which the tape structures could fester and spread before he could deal with them. He had to get about routine, occupy his mind, let his mind rest and sort things out slowly. If the body could only have a little sleep. Messages, please, he murmured, remembering he had to know if he had calls from Jordan, or elsewhere. They were generally trivia, advisories from the wing, from administration, a note of reprimand about the illicit entry. He drifted in the middle of it, woke with a start and a clutch at the couch, the erotic flush fading into a lightning-flash clinical recollection that he was going to have to wear long sleeves and high collars and put some fade on the bruises. Fade with a capital F. Some kind of a makeup thing. He could put Jordan off with a claim that Ari had him on extra lab duty. Logical, since Ari had no reason, in what he had told Jordan, to be pleased with him. He could not face Jordan at close quarters until he had better control of himself. In the next heartbeat, the minder's half-heard report clicked off. He realized that he had lost track of the playback, and that 2 days ago he had defaulted the minder's message function to play and erase.
And thus we learn that Ariane Emory is kind of a monster. And in the Cosby it's worse than that. Weinstein sense. And also does head jobs on people. Messes with their minds. 9. Grant could see the plane long before they reached the strip. Not the sleek elegance of Reseune by any stretch of the imagination, just a cargo plane with shielded windows. The car pulled up where people were waiting. "There," the driver said, virtually the only word he had spoken the entire trip, and indicated the people he was supposed to go to. "Thank you," Grant murmured absently, and opened his own door and got out, taking his lunch bag with him, walking with pounding heart up to total strangers. Not all strangers, thank God. Henson Kruger himself was there to do the talking. "This is Grant. Grant, these people will take you from here." Kruger stuck out his hand, and he was supposed to shake it, which he was not used to people doing. It made him feel awkward. Everything did. One of the men introduced himself as Winfield, introduced the woman in the group, the pilot, he supposed, in coveralls without any kind of badge or company name, as Kenny. And there were 2 other men, Rents and Jeffrey, last name or first or Aussie name, he was not sure. "Let's get going," Kenny said. Everything about her was nervous. Everything about her was nervous. The shift of her glance, the stiffness of her movements as she wiped her hands on her grease-stained coveralls. "Come on, let's move it, huh?" The men exchanged looks that sent little twitches through Grant's taut nerves. He looked from one to the other, trying to figure whether he was the object of contention. Trying to figure whether he was the object of contention. Arguing with strangers was difficult for him. Justin always fended problems for him. He knew his place in the world, which was to handle what his employer wanted handled. And Justin had told him to object. "We're going to Merrill?" he asked, because he had not heard that name, and he was determined to hear it before he went anywhere. "We're going to Merrill," Winfield said. Come on, up you go. Henson, no problem. I'll contact you later, all right?" Was that Henson? It's... "No problem. I'll contact you later, all right?" Grant hesitated, looking at Kruger, understanding that things were passing he did not understand. But he knew, he thought, as much as they were going to tell him, and he went ahead to the steps of the jet.
It had no company markings, just a serial number, A7998. White plane, with paint missing here and there and the spatter of red mud on its underside. Dangerous, he thought. Don't they foam it down here? Where's Decon? He climbed up into the barren interior, past the cockpit, and uncertainly looked back at Geoffrey and Rents, who followed him a little ahead of Winfield. The door whined up, and Winfield locked it. There were jump seats of a kind along the wall. Geoffrey took him by the arm, pulled a seat down, and helped him belt in. "Just stay there," Geoffrey said. He did, his heart thumping as the plane took its roll and glided into the sky. He was not used to flying. He twisted about and lifted a window shade to look out. It was the only light. He saw the precip towers and the cliffs and the docks passing under them as they came about. "Leave that down," Winfield said. "Sorry," he said, and drew the shade down again. It annoyed him. He very much wanted the view. But they were not people to argue with. He sensed that in the tone. He opened the bag the Krugers had fixed for him, examined what he had for breakfast, and then thought it was rude to eat when no one else had anything. He folded it closed again until he saw one of them, Rents, get up and go aft and come back with a few canned drinks. Rents offered one to him, the first kind gesture he had had out of them. "Thank you," he said. "They sent one." What? Or was that Rents? I don't know who said that. It could be Rents. "Thank you," he said. "They sent one." He thought it would be all right to eat, then. He had been so exhausted last night he had only picked at supper, and the salt fish and bread and soft drink Krugers had sent were welcome, even if he had rather have had coffee. The jet roared away, and the men drank their soft drinks and took occasional looks out onto the shades, mostly on the right side of the aircraft. Sometimes the pilot talked to them, a kind of sputter from the intercom. Grant finished his fish and bread and his drink and heard that they had reached 7,000 meters, then 10. "Sir," someone had said that morning, opening the door to his room to Kruger's house. Jesus. "Sir," someone had said that morning, opening the door to his room in Kruger's house, and Grant had waked in alarm, confused by his surroundings, the stranger who had to be speaking to him, calling him sir. He had hardly slept, and finally drowsed, to wake muddled and not sure what time it was or whether something had gone wrong. They had taken his card last night, when the night watch had brought him up from the dock and the warehouses, into the house itself, up the hill. Henson Kruger himself had looked it over and gone somewhere with it, to test its validity, Grant had thought, and he had been terrified. That card was his identity. If anything happened to it, it would take tissue typing to prove who he was after that, even if there was only one of him, which he had never, despite Jordan's assurances, been convinced was the case. But the card had turned up with the stack of clothing and towels the man laid on the chair by the door. The man told him to shower, that a plane had landed and a car was coming for him. Grant had hurried, then, rolled out of bed, still dazed and blurry-eyed, and staggered his way to the bathroom, rubbed his face with cold water, and looked in the mirror at eyes that wanted sleep and auburn hair standing up in spikes. God, he wanted desperately to make a good impression, look sane and sensible, and not what Reseune might well report to them, an alpha gone skits and possibly dangerous. He could end up back in Reseune if they thought that. They would not even bother with the police, and Ari might have tried some such move. Justin would have answered to Ari by now. However he was going to do it, Grant had no idea. He tried not to think about it, as he had tried to send the thoughts away all night long, lying there listening to the sounds of a strange house. Doors opening and closing, heaters and pumps going on, cars coming and going in the dark. He had showered in haste, dressed in the clothes they had laid out for him, a shirt that fit, trousers a bit too large or cut wrong or something, given his hair a careful combing and a second check in the mirror, then headed downstairs. "Good morning," one of the household had said to him, a young man. "Breakfast on the table there. They're on their way. Just grab it and come on." He was terrified for no specific cause, except he was being rushed, except that his life had been carefully ordered and that he had always known who would hurt him and who would help him. Now, when Justin had told him he would be free and safe, he had no idea how to defend himself, except to do everything they told him. Azzy-like. Yes, sir. He dropped his head onto his chest while the plane droned on, and shut his eyes, finally, exhausted and having nothing to look at but the barren deck, closed windows, and the sullen men who flew with him. Perhaps, he thought, if he simply said nothing to them, the trip would be easier, and he would wake up in Novgorod to meet Merrild, who would take care of him. He waked when he felt the plane change pitch and heard a difference in the engines, and panicked because he knew it was supposed to be 3 hours to Novgorod, and he was sure it had not been. "Are we landing?" he asked. "Is something wrong?" "Everything's fine," Winfield said, and "Leave that alone," when he reached for the shade, thinking it could surely make no difference. But evidently it did. The plane wallowed its way down, touched pavement, braked and bumped and rolled its way, he reckoned, toward the Novgorod terminal. It stopped and everyone got up, while the door unsealed and the hydraulics began to let the ladder down. He got up, taking the wadded-up paper bag with him. He was determined not to give them a chance to complain of his manners, and waited as Winfield took his arm. There were no large buildings outside, just cliffs and a deserted-looking cluster of hangars, and the air smelled raw and dry. A bus was moving up to the foot of the ladder. "Where are we?" he asked, on the edge of panic. "Is this Merrild's place?" "It's all right. Come on." He froze a moment. He could refuse to go. He could fight. And then there was nothing he could do because he had no idea where he was or how to fly a plane if he could take it over. The bus down there he might use to escape, but he had no idea where in the world he was, and if he ran beyond the fuel capacity in the raw outback, he was dead, that was all. Outback was all around them. He could see the land beyond the buildings. He could hope to get to a phone, if they got the idea he was compliant enough to turn their backs on. He had memorized Merrild's number. He thought of all that in the second between seeing where he was and feeling Winfield take his arm. "Yes, sir," he said meekly, and walked down the steps where they wanted him to go, which still might be to Merrild. He still hoped that they were telling the truth, but he no longer believed it. Winfield took him down... Winfield took him down to the waiting bus and opened the door to put him in, then got in after, with Geoffrey and Rents. There were 7 seats, one set by each window and across the back. Grant took the first, and Winfield sat beside him as the other pair settled in behind them. He scanned the windows and doors, elaborately air-sealed, an Outback vehicle. He clasped his hands in his lap and sat quietly watching as the driver started up and the bus whipped away across the pavement, not for the buildings, for a line road, probably the one they used to get to the precip towers. In a little time they were traveling on dirt, and in a little time more they were climbing, up from the lowland and onto the heights beyond the safety of that the towers maintained. Wild land. Perhaps he was going to die, after they had stripped his mind down for what he knew. They might be Ari's. But it was a very strange way for Reseune to handle its problems, when they could easily bring him back to Reseune without Jordan or Justin knowing. Just land like one of the regular transport flights and send him off in the bus to one of the outlying buildings where they could do whatever they liked till they were ready, if ever, to admit they'd had him. They might, more likely, be Ari's enemies, in which case they might do almost anything, and in that case they might not want him to survive to testify. Whatever had happened, Kruger was involved in it, beyond a doubt, and it could even be monetary. Perhaps everything rumor had said about Kruger's humanitarian concerns was a lie. Reseune was full of lies. Perhaps it was something Ari herself maintained. Perhaps Kruger had just fooled everyone, or perhaps he was engaged in a little side business, in forged contracts, with a capital C, whenever he got a likely prospect. Maybe he was being sold off to some mining site in the hinterlands, or, God, some place where they could try to retrain him. Try? Anyone who started meddling with his tape structures on a certain level he could handle. On others, he was not so sure. There were 4 of them, counting the driver, and such men might well have guns. The bus seals were life itself. He clasped his hands together and tried desperately to think the thing through. A phone was the best hope. Maybe stealing the bus once they trusted him, once he knew where civilization was and whether the bus had the fuel to get there. It could take days to get a chance. Weeks.
"I think you know by now," Winfield said finally, "this isn't where you're supposed to be."
"Yes, sir."
"We're friends. You should believe that."
"Whose friends?" Winfield put his hand on his arm.
"Your friends."
"Yes, sir. Agree to anything. Be perfectly compliant." "Yes, sir. Whatever you want, sir."
"Are you upset?"
Like a damned field supervisor talking to some moo-class worker. The man thought he knew what he was doing. That was good news and bad, depending what this fool thought he was qualified to do with tape and drugs. Winfield had mismanaged him thus far. He did not give way to instincts simply because he reckoned that they did not profit him in this situation, and because there was far more profit in keeping his head down, reckoning that his handlers were not stupid but simply too ignorant to realize that the alpha rating on his card meant that he could not have the kind of inhibitors born men were used to in Azzy. They should have drugged him and transported him under restraint. He was certainly not about to tell them so. "Yes, sir," he said, with the breathless anxiousness of a theta. Winfield patted his arm.
"It's all right. You're a free man. You will be."
He blinked. That took no acting. Free man added a few more dimensions to the equation, and he did not like any of them.
"We're going up in the hills a ways. A safe place. You'll be perfectly all right. We'll give you a new card. We'll teach you how to get along in the city."
Teach you. Retraining. God, what am I into? Is there any way this could be what Justin intended? He was afraid, suddenly, in ways that none of the rest of this had touched, that he did not have it figured, that defying these people might foul up something Justin had arranged, or Jordan, finding out about it, intervening. They might be what the only friends he had in the world had intended for him. They might be heading him for real freedom. But retraining, if that was what they had in mind, would reach into all his psych sets and disturb them. He did not have much in the world. He did not own anything, even his own person and the thoughts that ran in his brain. His loyalties were Azzy loyalties, he knew that, and accepted that, and did not mind that he had had no choice in them. They were real, and they were all he was. These people talked about freedom and teaching. And maybe the Warricks wanted that to happen to him, and he had to accept it, even if it took everything away from him and left him some cold freedom where home had been. because the Warricks could not afford to have him near them anymore, because loving him was too dangerous for all of them. Life seemed overwhelmed with paradoxes. God, now he did not know who had him or what he was supposed to do. Ask them to use the phone, get a message to Merrild to ask whether this was all right? But if they were not with Merrild, that would tip them off that he was not the compliant type they took him for. And if they were the other thing, if this was not the Warwick's doing, then they would see he had no chance at all. So he watched the landscape pass the windows and endured Winfield's hand on his arm, and his heart beating so hard it hurt. It was surreal, the way the day fell into its accustomed order, and inertia in the affairs of Reseune that refused to... Getting tongue-tied. It was surreal, the way the day fell into its accustomed order, and inertia in the affairs of Reseune that refused to be shaken, no matter what had happened, no matter that his body was sore and the damnedest innocent things brought on tape flashes that hour by hour assumed a more and more mundane and placid level of existence. Of course that was what it felt like. Of course people from the dawn of time had done sex with mixed partners, paid sex for safety. It was the world, that was all, and he was no kid to be devastated by it. It was more the hangover that had him fogged, and now he was on the other side of an experience he had rather not have had. He was still alive, Grant was downriver safe, Jordan was all right, and he had damned well better figure Ariane Emory had more than that in mind. Shake the kid up, play games with his mind, go on till he cracked. You wanted Grant free, boy. You can substitute, can't you? Leave the apartment, report to the office, smile at familiar people, and hear the business go on about him that had gone on yesterday, that went on every day in Wing 1. Jane Strassen cursing her aides and creating a furor because of some glitch-up in equipment repair. Yanni Schwartz trying to mollify her, a dull murmur of argument down the hall. Justin kept to his keyboard and immersed himself in a routine, in a problem in tape structure Ari had sent him a week ago, complex enough to keep the mind busy hunting linkages. He was careful. There were things the AI checker might not catch. There were higher-level designers between his efforts and an ASI test subject, and there were trap programs designed to catch accidental linkages in a particular psych set, but it was no generic teaching tape. It was deep tape, specifically one that a psych surgeon might use to fit certain of the KU-89 subsets for limited managerial functions. A mistake that got by the master designers could be expensive, could cause grief for the KU-89s and the ASI they might damage, could cause terminations if it went truly awry. It was every designer's nightmare, installing a glitch that would run quietly amok in a living intellect for weeks and years, till it synthesized a crazier and crazier logic set and surfaced on some completely illogical trigger. There was a book making the rounds, a science fiction thriller called Error Message, that had Giraud nigh upset. A not too well disguised Reseune marketed an entertainment tape with a worm in it, and civilization came apart. There was a copy in the library, on CIT only's checkout, with a long waiting list, and he and Grant had both read it. Of course. Like most every House ASI except Nye's, it was a good bet. And he and Grant had tried designing a worm just to see where it would go. Hey, Grant had said, sitting on the floor at his feet, starting to draw logic flows, we've got an alpha set we can use, hell with the row sets. We've got an alpha set we can use, hell with the row sets. It had scared him. It had gone unfunny right there. Don't even think about it, he had said, because if there was such a thing as a worm and they designed one that would work, thinking about it could be dangerous, and it was Grant's own set, Grant meant. Grant had his own manual. Grant had laughed, with that wicked, under-the-brows grin he had when he had tagged his CIT good. "I don't think we ought to do this," Justin had said, and grabbed the notebook. "I don't think we ought to mess around with it." "Hey, there isn't any such thing." "I don't want to find out." It was hard to be the authority for the moment, to pull sit rank on Grant and treat him like that. It hurt. It made him feel like hell. Suddenly and glumly sober, Grant had crumpled up his design start, and the disappointment in Grant's eyes had gone right to his gut. Till Grant had come into his room that night and waked him out of a sound sleep, saying he had thought of a worm, and it worked, whereupon Grant had laughed like a lunatic, pounced on him in the dark, and scared hell out of him. "Lights!" he had yelled at the minder, and Grant had fallen on the floor laughing. Which was the way Grant was, too damned resilient to let anything come between them, and damn well knowing what he deserved for his pretensions to godhood. He sat motionless at the keyboard, staring at nothing, with a dull ache inside that was purely selfish. Grant was all right. Absolutely all right. The intercom blipped. He summoned up the fortitude to deal with it and punched the console button. "Yes," he said, expecting Ari and Ari's office. "Justin," it was his father's voice, "I want to talk to you. My office. Now." He did not dare ask a question. "I'm coming," he said, shut down, and went immediately. He was back an hour later, in the same chair, staring at a lifeless screen for a long while before he finally summoned the self-control to key the project restore. The comp brought the program up and found his place. He was 1,000 miles away, halfway numb, the way he had made himself when Jordan told him he had gotten a call through to Merrill, and Merrill had given a puzzled negative to a coded query. Merrill had gotten no message. Merrill had gotten nothing at all that he would have recognized as the subject of Jordan's inquiry. Total zero. Maybe it was too soon. Maybe there was some reason Krugers had held Grant there and not called Merrill yet. Maybe they were afraid of Reseune. Or the police. Maybe Grant had never gotten there. He had been in shock as Jordan had sat down on the arm of the office chair and put his arm about him and told him not to give up yet. But there was nothing they could do. Neither of them, and no one they knew, could start a search, and Jordan could not involve Merrill by giving him the details over the house phone. He had called Krugers and flatly asked if a shipment got through. Krugers avowed it had gone out on schedule. Someone was lying. "I thought we could trust Merrill." I thought we could trust Merrill," was all he had been able to say. "I don't know what's going on," Jordan had said. "I didn't want to tell you, but if Ari knows something about this, she's going to spring it on you. I figured I'd better let you know." He had not broken down at all, until he had gotten up, had said he had to get back to his office, and Jordan hugged him and held him. Then he had fallen apart. But it was only what a boy would do, who had just been told his brother might be dead. Or in Ari's hands. He had gotten his eyes dry, his face composed. He had walked back through the security checkpoint and into Ari's wing, back past the continuing upset in Jane Strassen's staff, people trying to get a shipment out on the plane that was going after supplies, because Jane was so damned tight she refused to move with anything but a full load. He sat now staring at the problem in front of him, sick at his stomach and hating Ari, hating her, more than he had ever conceived of hating anyone, even while he did not know where Grant was, or whether he himself had killed him, sending him out in that boat. And he could not tell Jordan the full extent of what was going on. He could not tell Jordan a damned thing without triggering all the traps set for him. He killed the power again, walked out and down the hall to Ari's office, ignoring the to-do in the hall. He walked in and faced Florian, who had the reception desk. "I've got to talk to her," he said. "Now." Florian lifted a brow, looked doubtful, and then called through. "How are we?" Ari asked him, and he was shaking so badly standing in front of Ari's desk that he could hardly talk. "Where's Grant?" Ari blinked. One fast, perhaps honest reaction. "Where's Grant? Sit down. Let's go through this in order." He sat down in the leather chair at the corner of her desk and clenched his hands on its arms. "Grant's gone missing. Where is he?" Ari took in a long, slow breath. Either she had prepared her act or she was not troubling to mask at all. "He got as far as Kruger's. A plane came in this morning, and he might have left on it. 2 barges left this morning, and he could have been on those." "Where is he, damn it? Where have you got him?" "Boy, I do appreciate your distress, but get a grip on it. You won't get a thing out of me by shouting, and I'd really be surprised if the hysteria is an act. So let's talk about this quietly, shall we?" "Please!" "Oh, dear boy, that's just awfully stupid. You know I'm not your friend." "Where is he?" "Calm down. I don't have him. Of course I've had him tracked. Where ought he to be?" He said nothing. He sat there trying to get his composure back, seeing the pit in front of him. "I can't help you at all if you won't give me anything to work on." "You can damn well help me if you want to. You know damn well where he is." "Dear, you really can go to hell. Or you can answer my questions, and I promise you I'll do everything I can to extricate him from whatever he's gotten into. I won't have Kruger's arrested. I won't have your friend in Novgorod picked up. I don't suppose Jordan's phone call a while ago had anything to do with your leaving your office and coming in here. You two really aren't doing well this week." He sat and stared at her a long, long moment. "What do you want?" "The truth, as it happens. Let me tell you where I think he was supposed to go, and you just confirm it. A nod of the head will do. From here to Kruger's. From Kruger's to a man named Merrild, a friend of Corrain's." He clenched his hands the tighter on the chair, and nodded. "All right. Possibly he was on his way on the barges. It was supposed to be air, though, wasn't it?" "I don't know." "Is that the truth?" "It's the truth." "Possibly he just hasn't left yet. But I don't like the rest of the pattern. Corrain isn't the only political friend Kruger's got. Does the name Defort mean anything to you?" He shook his head, bewildered. "Rocher?" "Abolitionists?" His heart skipped a beat, hope and misery tangled up together. Rocher was a lunatic. "You've got it, sweet. That plane this morning landed over at Big Blue, and a bus met it and headed off on the Bertil-Sangue Road. I've got people moving on it, but it takes a little organizing even for me to get people in there that can get Grant out without them cutting his throat. They will, boy. The abolitionists aren't all in it for pure and holy reasons, and if they've played a hand that blows Kruger, you can damn well bet they aren't doing it for the sake of one Azzy. Are you hearing me, boy?" He heard. He thought he understood. But he had not done well in this. Ari had said it, and he wanted it from her. "What do you think they're after?" "Your father, and Councillor Corrain. Grant's a Reseune Azzy. He's a Warwick Azzy, damn near as good as getting their hands on Paul. And Defort's after Corrain's head, boy, because Corrain sold out to me. Corrain made a deal on the Fargon project and on the Hope project. Your father's the center of it, and damned if you didn't go and throw Grant right into Kruger's lap." "You're after him to haul him back." "I want him back. I want him away from Rocher, you damned little idiot, and if you want him alive, you'd better start telling me any secrets you've got left. You didn't know about the Rocher connection, did you? Didn't know a thing about Kruger's radical friends? I didn't.
I don't. Let me tell you what they'll do to him. They'll get him out someplace, fill him full of drugs, and interrogate him. Maybe they'll bother to give him tape while they're at it. They'll try to find out what he knows about the Rubin Project and the Hope Project and anything else he knows. They'll try to subvert him, God knows. But that isn't necessarily what they're after. I'll tell you what I think has happened. I think Kruger's being blackmailed by this lot. I think they had a man in his organization, and I think that when they knew what you dropped in his lap, Merrill never got a word of it. Rocher did, and Rocher's picked him up. Probably they have him sedated. When he does come around, what's he going to think? That these are friends of yours? That everything that's happening to him is your doing? For God's sake, it is, you know. Calm down and think this through. We can't go breaking in, shooting Rocher's people if we aren't damned sure he's with them. We're getting a locator into position. We missed a shot at the Bertil airport. We're not sure we're going to get any fix on them at Big Blue. We'll try. In the meanwhile, we aren't 100% sure he's not still at Kruger's. Now, I can get a warrant for a search there, but I'm going to take another tack. I can damn well guess how they're blackmailing Kruger. I can bet a lot of his ASI contracts are real suspect, and I can arrange an audit. I've got a plane on its way over there. In the meanwhile, Giraud is going to fly over to Korean at Gagaringrad. Oh, gosh. As in Yuri. Yuri Gagarin. In the meanwhile, Giraud is going to fly over to Korean at Gagaringrad and talk to him. You're going to explain this to Jordan, and tell Jordan I'd really appreciate it if he'd get onto this and get Merrill on Kruger's case. We get him out, he said, and he goes to Merrill. Merrill won't blow anything. Sweet, Ari said. You know me better than that. We get him out, and he comes right back to Reseune. He'll have been in their hands better than 48 hours, best we can do, if it isn't longer than that. We'll have to have him in for a check, won't we? They could have done him all sorts of nastiness. And you wouldn't want to leave him to nurse that kind of damage all on his own now, would you? You want this blown wide open. Sweet, you don't want it blown wide open. You don't want your father involved. He's going to be well aware when we pull Grant back here. If we can get him back alive, he's going to be well aware we have Grant in hospital, isn't he? And he's going to be worried. I'll trust you can keep your bargain with me, sweet. He said nothing, finding no argument, no weapon left. That's supposing, she said, that he's salvageable. It may take years of treatment, if I can straighten him out. Of course, we have to get him away alive. That's first. You are threatening me. Sweet, I can't predict what Rocher will do, or where shots may go. I'm only warning you. I told you I'd do what you want. For your father's sake. Yes, I'm sure you will. And we'll talk about Grant after I've got him. She flipped the cover on the intercom and punched a button. Jordan, Ari here. What is it? Jordan's voice came back. I've got your son in my office. Seems we've both noticed a little problem. Would you mind calling your contact in Novgorod again and telling him he really needs to get Kruger to give me a call? (11) There was break time, finally, in the dingy little precip station where they had pulled in. An underground garage and a concrete stairs and this place that was mostly crumbling concrete. There were only 3 rooms to it, excluding the bath and the kitchen. It had no windows, because windows were a liability in a place like this, just a kind of periscope rig that would give a 360-degree scan of the area, but Grant had no access to it. He sat and answered questions, most of the time truthfully, often enough not, which was the only defense he could muster. There was not a phone in the place. There was a radio. He had no idea how in the world... He had no idea in the world how to work it, except having seen Jordan use one on the boat years ago. He was still not sure what they were, or whose they were.
He just mumbled answers to Winfield's questions and complained. Complained about the lack of coffee, complained about the uncomfortable accommodations, complained about everything, figuring to push them as far as he could, make them mad if he could, and get them to react. He played a slow relaxation, gathering confidence in his safety, flowered into the worst bitch house-assy he could script. He built off Aban, as it happened, Gerard Nye's insufferable staffer, who was a prime pain to the janitorial and the kitchen staff, not mentioning any Azzy he thought he outranked. There was a tape machine in the bedroom. He did not like the look of that. It was not an unexpected thing to find in an out-of-the-way place. Entertainment would be high among priorities for a line-keeper stationed out here, wherever here was. But it was not a little entertainment rig. It was new equipment. It looked like it had monitor plugs, and he was nervous about it. He figured to push them to the point where any reasonable CIT... Excuse me, Jesus.
Ahoo!
Rebellion of the diaphragm. He figured to push them to the point where any reasonable CIT would lose his temper and see what sort they were. "Sit down," Rentz said when he got up to follow Winfield to the kitchen. "I thought I could help, sir. He heard a car. The others heard it too, and all at once Rentz and Jeffrey were on their feet, Winfield coming back from the kitchen, Winfield very quick to take a look with the periscope. "Looks like Crawler." "Who's?" Grant asked. "Just sit down." Rentz put a hand on Grant's shoulder and shoved him into the chair, held him there while the sound of the car grew louder. The garage door went up, without anyone in the room doing anything. "That's Crawler." "That's Krahler," Winfield said. The lessening of tension was palpable all around the room. The car drove in, the noise vibrating through the wall that divided them from the underground garage. The garage doors went open, the decon spray hissed for a moment, then car doors opened and slammed, and someone came up the steps. "Who's Crawler, sir?" "A friend," Winfield said. "Jeffrey, take him on into the bedroom." "Sir, where is Merrill? Why hasn't he come? Jeffrey hauled him out of the chair and headed him for the bedroom, pushing him at the bed. "Lie down," Jeffrey said in a tone that encouraged no argument. "Sir, I want to know where Merrill is. I want to know—" Rentz had followed him. It was the best set he was likely to have. He whirled and took out Jeffrey with his elbow, Rentz with his other hand, and rushed to the other room, where Winfield had realized his danger. Winfield pulled a gun from his pocket, and Grant dodged. But Winfield did not panic as he might. Winfield had a steady hand and an unmissable shot, and Grant froze where he was, against the doorframe, while the door from the garage opened and a trio of men came in, two of them fast and armed. One of the men behind him was getting up. Grant stood very still until someone grabbed him from behind. He could have broken the man's arm. He did not. He let the man pull him back, while Winfield followed up and kept the gun on him. "That's the way it's been going here?" Winfield did not laugh. "Lie down," he said to Grant, and Grant backed up to the bed and sat down. "Down!" He did what Winfield wanted. Jeffrey got cord from his pocket and tied his right wrist to the bed frame, while Rentz was moaning on the floor and the several armed men stood there with their guns aimed in Grant's direction. The other wrist, then, at an uncomfortable stretch. Grant looked at the men who had come in, two of them large, strong men, and one older, slight, the only one without a gun. It was his look Grant distrusted. It was this man that the others deferred to. Crawler, the others had called him. More names he did not know. Names that had nothing to do with Merrill. They put away the guns. They helped Rentz up. Geoffrey stayed while all the others left, and Grant stared at the ceiling, trying not to think how unprotected his gut was at the moment. Geoffrey just pulled the drawer open under the tape machine and took out a hypo spray. He put it against Grant's arm and triggered it. Grant winced at the kick and shut his eyes, because he would not remember to do that in a few moments, and he did not trust them to remind him. He gathered up the defenses he had in his psych set and thought mostly of Justin, not wasting time with the physical attack that had gone wrong. The next level of this was a fight of a very different sort. He had no more doubts. The guns had proved it. What they were about to do proved it. And he was, Azzy that he was, a Reseune apprentice in Ariane Emory's wing. Ariane Emory had created him. Ariane Jordan had done his psych sets, and damned if somebody he had never heard of could crack them. He was slipping. He felt the dissociation start. He knew that the man was back, and they were starting the tape. He was going far, far under. Heavy dose. Deep tape with a vengeance. He had expected that. They asked his name. They asked other things. They told him they owned his contract. He was able to remember otherwise. He waked, finally. They let him loose to drink and relieve himself. They insisted he eat, even if it nauseated him. They gave him a little respite. After that, they did it all again, and the time blurred. There might have been more such wakings. Misery made them all one thing. His arms and back ached when he came to. He answered questions. Mostly he did not know where he was, or remember clearly why he had deserved this. Then he heard a thumping sound. He saw blood splatter across walls of the room. He smelled something burning. He thought that he had died then, and men came and wrapped him in a blanket, while the burning smell grew worse and worse. Up and down went crazy for a while, and tilted, and the air had a heartbeat. "He's waking up," someone said. "Give him another one." He saw a man in blue coveralls, saw the Infinite Man emblem of Reseune's staff. Then he was not sure of anything he had surmised. Then he was not sure where the tape had started or what was real. "Get the damn hypo!" someone yelled in his ear. "Damn it, hold him down!" "Justin!" he screamed, because he believed now he had always been home, and there was the remote chance Justin might hear him, help him, get him out of this. "Justin!" The hypo hit. He fought, and bodies lay on him until the weight of the drug became too much for him, and the world reeled and turned under him. He waked in a bed, in a white room, with restraints across him. He was naked under the sheets. There were biosensors on a band about his chest and around his right wrist. The left was bandaged. An alarm beeped. He was doing it. His pulse rate was a silent scream he tried to slow and hush. But the door opened. A technician came in. It was Dr. Ivanov. "It's all right," Dr. Ivanov said, and came and sat down on the side of his bed. "They brought you in this afternoon. It's all right. They blew those bastards to bloody hell." "Where was I?" he asked, calmly, very calmly. "Where am I now?" "Hospital. It's all right." The monitor beeped again, rapidly. He tried to calm his pulse. He was disoriented. He was no longer sure where he had been, or what was real. "Where's Justin, sir?" "Waiting to see you're coming around. How are you doing? All right?" "Yes, sir. Please, can you take this damn stuff off?" Ivanov smiled and patted his shoulder. "Look, lad, you know, and I know you're sane as they come, but for your own good, we're just going to leave that on a while. How's the bladder?" "I'm all right." It was one more indignity atop the rest. He felt his face go red. "Please, can I talk to Justin?" "Not a long talk, I'm afraid.
They really don't want you talking to much of anybody until the police have a go at you. It's all right, just formalities. You just answer 2 questions, they'll make out their reports, that's all there is to it. Then you'll take a few tests. Be back up at the house in no time. Is that all right?
Yes, sir. The damned monitor beeped and stopped as he got control of his pulse rate. What about Justin? Please. Ivanov patted his shoulder and got up and went to the door and opened it. It was Justin who came in. The monitor fluttered and steadied and went silent again, and Grant looked at him through a shimmering film. Jordan was there too. Both of them. And he was terribly ashamed. Are you all right? Justin asked. I'm fine, he said, and lost control of the monitor again, and of his blinking, which spilled tears down his face. I guess I'm in a lot of trouble. No, Justin said, and came and gripped his hand, hard, saying different things with his face. The monitor fluttered and quieted again. It's all right. It was a damn fool stunt. But you're coming back to the house. Here? Yes. Justin bent over and hugged him, restraints and all, and drew back. Jordan came and did the same, held him by the shoulders and said, Just answer their questions, all right? Yes, sir, he said. Can you make them let me go? No, Jordan said. It's for your own safety, all right? Jordan kissed him on the forehead. He had not done that since he was a very small boy. Get some sleep, yeah? Whatever tape you get, I'll vet, personally. Yes, sir, he said, and lay there and watched Jordan and Justin go out the door. The monitor beeped in panic. He was lost. He had hell to go through before he got out of this place. He had looked at Justin's face past Jordan's shoulder and seen hell enough right there. Where was I? What really happened to me? Have I ever left this place? A nurse came in with a hypo, and there was no way to argue against it. He tried to quiet the monitor, tried to protest. Just a sedative, the nurse said, and shot it off against his arm. Or Jeffrey had. He went reeling backward and forward and saw the blood splatter on the white wall, heard people yelling. "12. Good enough? Ari asked Justin in her office. Alone. When can he get out? Oh, Ari said, I don't know. I really don't know. Like I don't know now about the bargain we've worked out, which seems rather moot right now, doesn't it? What coin have you left to trade in? My silence. Sweet, you have a lot to lose if you break that silence. So does Jordan. Isn't that why we're doing all this? He was trembling. He tried, not showing it. No, we're doing this because you don't want your precious project blown. Because you don't want publicity right now. Because you've got a lot to lose. Otherwise, you wouldn't be this patient. A slow smile spread on Ari's lips. I like you, boy. I really rather like you. Loyalty's the rarest thing in Reseune, and you have so much of it. What if I gave you Grant, untouched, unaltered? What's he worth to you? It's possible, Justin said in a measured, careful tone, you can misjudge how far you can push me. What's he worth? You release him. You don't run tape on him. Sweet, he's a little confused. He's been through hell. He needs rest and treatment. I'll see he gets it. Jordan will. I'm telling you, don't push me too far. You don't know what I'd do. Oh, sweet, I know what you can do. A lot of it really exquisite. And I don't have to deal with you about Grant at all. I have some very different kinds of tapes. Your father would die. He would outright die.
Maybe you underestimate him." "Oh, have you told him?" "I thought not. You have to understand the situation, you see. It's not just his son. It's not just some woman. You're his twin. It's me, Ariane Emory. Not mentioning the Azzy." She chuckled softly. "It's a marvelously good try, it really is. I respect that. I respect it enough to give you a little latitude. Come here, boy. Come here." She held out her hand. He hesitated in confusion and finally held out his own within her reach. She took it gently, and his nerves jumped, his pulse fluttered, and a flush came over his skin, confusing all his thinking. He did not jerk away. He did not dare. He could not formulate a sarcasm. His mind was darting too fast in a dozen directions, like something small and panicked. "You want a favor? You want Grant back? I'll tell you what, sweet. You just go on cooperating, and we'll just make that our private little deal. If you and I get along till your father goes, if you keep your mouth shut, I'll make him a present to you." "You're using deep tape." "On you? Nothing to really bend your mind. What do you think, that I can take a normal, healthy mind and redesign it? You've been reading too many of those books. The tapes I used with you are recreational. They're what the Moo class Azzy get, when they're really, really good. You think you can't stand them? You think they've corrupted you? Reseune will do worse than that, sweet, and I can teach you. I told you, I like you. Someday you'll be a power in Reseune, here or far gone or wherever. You've got the ability. I'd really like to see you survive." "That's a lie." "Is it? It doesn't matter." She squeezed his fingers. "I'll see you at my place. Same time. Here." He drew his hand back. That's here, Hear. He drew his hand back. "It's not like I don't give you a choice." She smiled at him. "All you have to do is keep things quiet. That's not much, for as much as you're asking. You make my life tranquil, sweet, and stand between me and Jordan, and I won't have his friends arrested, and I won't do a mind wipe on Grant. I'll even stop giving you hell in the office. You know what the cost is, for all those transfers you want. You sign Grant over to me. Next week, in case something comes up. You're such a clever lad. You understand me. Make it 2200 this evening. I'm working late." And that is where we will call it for today. Wow, that actually went longer than I thought. I might have to split tomorrow's in half. We'll see. Anyway. Oh, look, there's another bot. Goodbye, Twitch bot. Illegitimate keyhole my bee says, "Go get blanked. Banished to the nether realm."
So yeah, we will continue this tomorrow. I know where buttons are. I'll find them again. So yeah, Ari... very Harvey Weinstein. She is very much abusing her power. She is a nightmare. Made worse because she is genuinely brilliant in ways that folks like Harvey Weinstein aren't necessarily. And she knows how to work people in a way that's really scary, as we are learning. So yeah, this installment probably is going to be a trigger for some people, and for that, I guess I apologize, but it is fairly important going forward, as you can probably guess. Such events in people's lives tend not to be a minor facet. They tend to feature rather heavily. They tend to be, even, traumatizing in a big way. So we will see how Justin deals with that. We'll learn more about what was going on with Grant eventually. We're going to learn more about how an alpha class as he deals with the kind of trauma he's experienced. Let's see. We'll learn a lot of things. There'll be some paradigm shifts for the book as we go. We're not quite there yet. I don't consider that a spoiler. I think some people do. I make allusions, and I think that does occasionally. Oh, did it just cut out? No, it didn't. I make allusions, and I think that maybe irritates people, and for that I apologize. I try not to give anything important away. Of course, what I consider important, what other people consider important, are probably two different things, and for that, I also apologize. Anyway, we'll resume this tomorrow. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. I'll see you later. Stay safe, stay sane, be decent to each other, and all that jazz. Toodaloo? Toodaloo. Mañana, muchachos.